In a move that has definitely left a lot of football experts scratching their heads, Barcelona decided to sell upcoming midfielder Arthur Melo to Juventus for €72 million. The young Brazilian was heralded as Xavi's second coming when he first arrived at Camp Nou. Indeed, Arthur was expected to tread the same path the Barcelona legend took many years ago. Sadly, inconsistent displays and constant injury worries meant that at the age of 23, the Brazilian was unable to realise his true potential and was effectively discarded in place of Pjanic, who will leave Juventus for the Spanish giant at the end of the current campaign. At the age of 23, Arthur has a lot of time on his hands and could still become a player blessed with the same skill set that Xavi used to perfection during a trophy-laden career in Catalonia. However, it must be remembered that Xavi wasn't really the Xavi we all know before he was 28. Clearly, Barcelona allowing to let go of a player of Arthur's calibre without even unlocking half of his potential is a damning indictment of the club's transfer policy in recent years. While you cannot deny the talent of Pjanic, who has had a stellar 8-year career in Italy at the age of 30, is the Bosnian a long-term solution? It's clear that the Bosnian is nearing the twilight years of his career, and his form at Juventus at present has been questionable to say the least. The former Roma man is not dominating as a deep-lying playmaker the way he used to a year ago. Maurizio Sarri was always eager to find a better orchestrator in the middle of the park, and in Arthur, the Italian is going to get hold of a player who might be inconsistent but is definitely a long-term project. Maybe Pjanic might end up shining for Barcelona and could even become the linchpin of a side that would go on to conquer Spain and Europe once again. If this type of scenario unfolds, all doubts over such a deal would go away. Or maybe Arthur never manages to realise his true potential and becomes a bench warmer at Juventus and seen as one of the club's worst signings in recent history, but that is highly doubtful. Throughout the current campaign and in recent seasons, Juventus have dominated possession of the ball and prefer playing football the right way. With a player like Arthur in their ranks, someone who loves to keep possession of the ball and absolutely enjoys picking out accurate passes, Juventus might even unearth the final piece of the puzzle that could potentially hand them the elusive Champions League trophy. So imagine in a world where both Pjanic and Arthur shine for their new teams, and we would then have to admit that both teams conducted one of the greatest swaps in football history. In recent times, swap deals haven't really worked out. Alexis Sanchez to Manchester United, with Henrikh Mkhitaryan going to Arsenal, was a straight swap, and both deals are considered one of the worst deals in football history. Both men struggled at their new clubs and are now on loan in Italy for Inter and Roma, respectively. But in all fairness, seeing the Bosnian and Brazilian flop is not the ideal scenario or a realistic one. Pjanic's style of play is pretty much in line with what Barcelona look out for in a player. While Sergio Busquets adds a lot of grit in the middle of the park, the Bosnian would add a cutting edge and would actually strike the right chords with the likes of Frenkie de Jong and Riqui Puig. Essentially, Pjanic would be expected to do what Arthur was expected to do at Barcelona, while Arthur will be trying to fill in the role that was meant for Pjanic in Turin. With some truly graceful performances, Arthur really captured the imagination of the Barcelona faithful. The youngster's measured passing ability is something of a rarity, and the jury would perhaps be forever out on the club for losing patience on a player who had his best years ahead of him. The arrival of Frenkie de Jong did play a role in reduced game time, but for a player of Arthur's class, a system could have been devised. No matter how this pans out, allowing Arthur to leave Camp Nou when the Brazilian wanted to stay is a big mistake. The current Barcelona squad is aging fast. The likes of Lionel Messi, Gerard Piqué, Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba and Arturo Vidal aren't going to be around for a long time. Antoine Griezmann was expected to be that one impact signing who would turn things around, but the Frenchman hasn't been able to find his feet so far. It would have made sense had Barcelona replaced Arthur with a younger option, but by bringing Pjanic, the club has shown that they haven't learned their lessons from the recent past. The club's transfer policy is not entirely driven by the sporting dynamics and has more to do with balancing books. Years of making big money signings only to see them fail miserably has taken a toll on the club, and this is exactly why Arthur's transfer to Juventus was eventually going to happen. Fans might not like it, but at the end of the day, Barcelona is a club that's in financial turmoil and needs to be on the right side of financial fair play. The Blaugrana are clearly not looking into the future, since balancing the books requires their immediate attention. Arthur didn't want to leave, the fans wanted him to stay put, while Barcelona's coaching staff also wanted the player to be kept, but the men upstairs decided that selling the highly rated midfielder would be easier than selling off expensive flops such as Coutinho or Moussa Dembele. The two men haven't had any genuine suitors at the moment, and no one will pay upwards of €100 million for these two, given their inconsistent displays and injury history. Therefore, it made financial sense to offload one player who would command a good transfer fee. Technically speaking, this transfer is seen as a swap deal, with Juventus paying an extra €12 million. However, both clubs have officially stated that the two transfers are completely separate and should be treated as such. On the spreadsheet, the transfer of Arthur would mean that Barcelona generated €72 million, while Juventus generated a profit of €60 million, and that is what both clubs wanted, to post a decent amount of profit before the end of the financial year, which is at the end of June. The outgoing cost is spread across the duration of their contracts, so both sides would be able to show a profit of roughly €50 million, something that would come in very handy when UEFA starts taking their notes. According to several reports, Barcelona have been in a race against time to bring in roughly €70 million in player sales before the end of June in order to balance the books. The club's hierarchy had been concerned about this a lot, and a number of players were asked to seek pastures new. Out of Ivan Rakitic, Arturo Vidal and Arthur Melo, it was the latter who was going to be sacrificed because of his transfer value. The likes of Samuel Umtiti and Nelson Semedo might still be moved on, but such moves would require time, a luxury La Blaugrana did not have. So while the transfer of Arthur at such a stage in his career doesn't make a lot of sporting sense, it does make a lot of financial sense. Whether he succeeds at Juventus or not is an entirely different question altogether. If Arthur is able to realise his potential and becomes a permanent fixture in Sarri's starting 11 from next season, Barcelona might be ridiculed for showing such short-sightedness, but at the end of the day, if such a sale helps them stay in the good graces of UEFA, it becomes a necessary step forward after years of poor transfer dealings. And Arthur, on the other hand, isn't necessarily the victim of his performances. The Brazilian is just paying the price of years of mismanagement that has been quietly destroying the very foundations of the club he never wanted to leave.